Appropriate. All right, here we go. So today is February 13th, 2017. This is Laura Osteen coming at you. And if for the record, can I get you to state your name and your date and place of birth?
I'm Juanita Ruth Stewart, and I've always been called Ruth. I never was called, if anybody says Juanita, I know they don't know me. Never was called, went by Juanita, but that's my legal name. And I was born on Park Lane over by the old Park City, Old City, and that was Park Avenue, I think it was called then. Born February the 25th, 1927.
1927.
I'm 90 on February the 25th.
So happy early birthday.
Thank you.
I just celebrated a birthday myself, January 20th.
Oh, how about that?
So what was the area of town like that you grew up in?
Well, I grew up on 5206 Richard Street at Homer, and it was there were a lot of houses on that street, but North Henderson was a half a block away, and it was all open ground, open land, and my dad had a cow named Pet, and he would stake that cow out every morning after he had brought Pet up to be milked, and stake her out on North Henderson there at Richard Street. That was all vacant land then.
You had a cow named Pat?
A cow named Pet.
Is that the only animals that you had?
No, we always had, in the backyard, we had a large backyard. We always had chickens, and I even had a pet duck once, and we always had fresh milk, and Mother made butter and buttermilk, and we always had fresh eggs, and my first piano lessons were bartered for the fresh milk, and my piano teacher was across the street from where we lived, and I would get my piano lessons for 2 quarts of milk, and Mother made a little canvas satchel with 2 little slats down the front of it, so I could carry the bottles of milk across the street for my piano lesson in exchange for the piano lesson. And my dog, I had a dog named Pal, and Pal would go and sit at the door while I had my piano lesson, and she would not even let the next student come in until I came out. Very watchful.
What kind of stuff did you play on the piano?
Well, I was trained in classical music, and I studied with Van Katwick my senior year out at SMU even. But as years went on, I don't play classical anymore, but I do play the church hymns, and I play at our church.
Did you ever move to the jazzier stuff?
No, I never did play the jazz or the popular. Well, I had popular music I played, but I was trained in classical music. And I gave a junior recital and a senior recital when I was at TSCW. It was then. Now it's Texas University, but it was TSCW then. I studied with Harlan Pettit there, and as I said, then I had a double major. I was in education and piano and music, and I worked on my master's in education out at SMU.
When did you graduate?
I graduated in 1945 from high school, and then graduated from college in 1948. I went 2 summers and was able to finish in 3 years at TSCW.
Were there a lot of women in college at the time?
Oh yeah, the war was on, and towards the end of the war, you might say, and oh yeah, I don't remember what the population was, but it was a large school even then.
What was it like living during the war?
Well, I played at our church I grew up down at First Baptist Church, and they had on Saturday night a USO for the soldiers, and I always played music down there for them, and men were very scarce. However, we always had, I always had planned
She didn't like to date any of them.
No, I dated a few of the soldiers, but it was, times were tough then, but it was a busy time.
Did you ever go to the fair?
The state fair? Oh yeah, Dallas. Sure, we went to the fair every year. We never missed the fair. Yeah, we loved to go to the fair, and my dad and mother and myself.
It was said that the two statues at the end of the Esplanade were scrapped during World War II to use the.
I don't know about that.
Well, they're still up there now, but they're not the original ones.
Oh really? I don't know. I didn't know that.
So where did you meet your husband?
I had come home from TSCW one. They had family night, and it was on a Friday night. I had come home for the weekend, and the Sunday school group were all grouped together, and there was only one empty seat as I came in, and everybody said, "Oh, there's Ruth Randall. There's Ruth Randall," and so I went over and sat beside him, and he said it was love at first sight. I don't know, but he had a date that night with one of his dear friends. Sister, and Harold Lichtenwald, who was a former principal here in Dallas. He's deceased now, but he lived over at the Y. Harold did, and when he went back to the YMCA, he said, "Oh, I wish I had a date with that girl. That Ruth," said, "she is so beautiful." Said, "She's just everybody's crazy about Ruth." He said, "Well, I think I can arrange that." So instead of going with his sister, I went with Jack that night out to Flagpole Hill, and we had a wiener roast. And it was, we went together 2 years. I was a junior then, and I had several other boyfriends. In fact, I went with Bob Jeffries, who it was Dr. Jeffries' son. I mean, his father was Dr. Jeffries, and Bob Jeffries went to SMU. He was a business major. He's deceased now. But anyhow,
That's the pastor of
the
First
pastor of
Baptist
First
now.
Baptist Church. That was his daddy, Dr. Bob. And anyhow, that was just about it. And so finally, Jack would come up on the bus on Sunday, and there would always be Bob Jeffries was usually there, or someone else, and he kind of got perturbed, and he said, "I just never get to have any time with you." And I said, "Well, if I knew you were coming, I wouldn't accept another date." But anyhow, it worked out, and finally he said, "Well, it's got to either be this guy or me. I'm tired of waiting." So anyhow, I got engaged, and I graduated in May. Dr. Walker came up to TSCW and hired me, and he was Dr. Walker was Doak Walker's father. He was in charge of personnel at that time down at DISD, and he hired me, and then we were married in July the 24th, 1948. And we were married 63 years when Jack passed away. He had Alzheimer's. And it was a love affair to the very end. We loved doing everything together. We loved the theater. We went to New York 17 or 18 times, always the day after Christmas, because I was off for that 2 weeks. And he always took vacation time then too. But we had some wonderful experiences together. And we were married 8 years before we had children, and I taught 8 years first, and I felt like it was an 8-year honeymoon. You really get to know somebody, and you don't have anybody else to think about or care about particularly. And so then when I became pregnant with Randy, our oldest son, he's now 60, I substituted in between, and after he was born, my mother lived just about 2 blocks away, and she helped me out a lot whenever I would substitute. She'd always keep Randy, and then 2 years later I had Lisa, who's now my daughter that lives with me, of course, and she, then I became, in the meantime, I left First Baptist Church, and kind of interesting about Jack, when I met him, he was a Methodist. And after we got serious, I said, well, I'll tell you, I could never marry a Methodist because I believe the Baptist way. I said, I was raised Baptist and I'll always be Baptist. And he said, well, it doesn't make any difference to me. I just be a Baptist as a Methodist. So he lived in a small town, Godley, out of Cleburne. And that's when they had the pastors that come through every month and would stay a month, preach 4 Sundays, and then move on somewhere else. And so he made his profession of faith with a Methodist preacher. So he became a Baptist, and Dr. Truitt had baptized me, and that was my claim to fame, Dr. George W. Truitt. But anyhow, Dr. Criswell then was the pastor, and he baptized Jack. And then in 1948, he married Jack and me. And so that was a wonderful time together of 8 years not having children. And then I left First Baptist because my father was a builder, and he had built Dr. Colton's new home over on Midway Road, right 2 doors down from where we later moved when my dad opened an edition called Plane, P-L-A-N-E, Airplane, Plain View Edition. It was the 3rd edition that he had opened in the Dallas area and built houses. And the house that we were living in was down on Parkside Drive, and it was kind of interesting when they built the new Lemon Avenue, well, I say new, it was new then, the Lemon Avenue. It was a long ranch-style house, and they moved that house up over on Midway Road, and it's right at the corner of Midway Road and Bluffview now. Still stands there, and we sold it later after my mother passed away, but it was...
Bluffview and Midway?
Midway Road,
Midway and Lover's Lane.
Lover's Lane, Midway and Lover's Lane, yeah. Bluffview Boulevard goes off of Lover's Lane, yeah. Then Dr. Colton lived 2 doors down there on Midway Road, and my dad built his home and a big study there in the back, and Dr. C.E. Colton. And so then they approached me, knowing that I had been a teacher. We went to North Temple Baptist Church over on Denton Drive, and it was in its big heyday, you might say. It had a big attendance then, and it's all been torn down now. I think all they have is just the original church, and it's basically Hispanic area now. And they approached me to establish a 3-, 4-, and a 5-year-old program. They didn't have kindergarten in public schools then, and so I taught the 5-year-olds. I set up the school, and I had a 3-, 4-, and a 5-year-old program, and I hired a teacher for the 3-year-olds and the 4-year-olds, and I taught the 5-year-olds. And then as the children came along, I was able to take them with me, and I was through by 12:30. School was just from 8 to, I think, 12 or something like that, and it was usually about 12:30 when I got away. And that was a lovely experience. And then when they started school at Sudie Williams in Bluffview, they were in grades 2 and 4. I thought, my life must be over now. What in the world am I going to do? And I said, all I know is I was trained in education. I'll go back to teaching. And so I wrote a letter to Dr. Walker. He was still superintendent of schools. And I told him, I said, well, I taught 8 years, and now I'm ready to come back to teaching again. And I said, I have driven I felt, well, my first school was at W.W. Bushman, way out by the Veterans Hospital. And after 3 years, I asked for a transfer to get closer to home, and they sent me to F.P. Callier out in Casalinda. So I was driving Northwest Highway when it was all open ground. I mean, nothing had been built all that way. And I often thought, oh, if I had car trouble, what in the world would I do? But luckily I never did. But I drove Northwest Highway all the way to cut through Jupiter and all of that.
How long
Ferguson.
was that trip?
Yeah, I allowed myself an hour to get there. But it was, as I said, it was all open ground on Northwest Highway then. Nothing had been built. It was, so anyhow, I wrote Dr. Walker a letter, and I said, you know, I felt like in the 8 years that I taught, I did a lot of driving, and I said, I have the children now, and my mother that helps me, she lives just on Midway Road, just maybe about a block from where we were living then on Adrian Drive. My dad, it was the last house he had built in the addition, and we had bought it. And we were living in Oak Cliff originally, not too far from the school. But anyhow, I asked for Callier or Stephen Foster, and I got Callier, F.P. Callier on Merrill Road. And I taught there 27 years. So I had a dear teacher friend, and I had drawn down my teacher retirement of those 8 years because I thought, well, I'll never teach again. And my dear teacher friend, Evelyn Sanders, she said, Ruth, you need to buy back those years. They opened the window where you could buy back your retirement, your years that you'd cashed in. And I said, well, I don't think I can. I said, you know, everything's relevant. When we first married, we bought a brand new Pontiac, and Jack had a good job, and I had a contract to teach, and you know, we thought we had the world by the tail, you might say. But anyhow, she said, well, you need to go establish your own credit. You go down to the credit union and you borrow, it was $8,000, and you have them deducted out of your salary and pay that $8,000 back. She said it'll mean a whole lot when you retire to be able to retire with full retirement. So I went down to the credit union and told them that I had drawn down my 8 years of teaching and that I wanted to buy it back. And so they wrote me up, and I established my own credit because I didn't have any credit at that time, and got it paid for. So anyhow, I ended up teaching. I got 35 years in that way. I was 27 and in the 8. And then I retired in 1992 it was. And so I've been retired a good while.
How would you describe teaching for almost 3 decades for DISD?
Well, I still have some wonderful teacher friends, and the Carolyn Schroeder that taught the kids at Sudie Williams went on to be a principal, and we still get together, longtime friend. I say friend of long standing, not old friend anymore, but it was the best of times. At Callier, there on Merrill Road, it was all open ground. I mean, there wasn't any houses that had been built, and all of the additions had been built around it from when I was there. And it was a cotton field normally. Used to be all a big cotton field area. And we felt like, I started out as a 3rd grade teacher, and then when they started busing, my principal then, she said, Ruth, she said they had to have a certain ethnicity breakdown then. They were real strong on so many Anglos and so many black and so many whites, and said, you're either going to have to move to 6th grade or I'm going to have to transfer you. And of course, living here, I was only, you know, where Callier is there on Merrill Road. I could ride to school in less than 10 minutes. I almost could have walked, but I never did. And I said, well, I really don't know if I would like to teach 6th grade. But I said, this was when busing started in what, when did busing start? About 63, 64, I guess, 1963, 64. She said, well, I'll tell you, Ruth, she said that you will be the best thing that happens to these 6th graders, because these 6th graders were bussed in from out on Singleton Boulevard in that area. And that was a very, poor area then, and it still is for that matter. But we had the talented and gifted, and then we had the ESL program teacher, and then I got everything else. So I had a big mixture of Anglos and blacks and Hispanics. Bless your heart.
Do you want some water?
I was just about to grab some.
And as I got where I loved those kids, and I told them, I said, I'm not here for any popularity contest. I said, you can learn, and I will not give up on you until you walk out that door in May. I'm going to do the best I can with you, teaching you, and I expect you to do the best you can with your learning. And I never really had behavior problems. Maybe one or two that came along that thought they could overtake me, but they never did. And so I was at Cal Yeh 27 years, as I said, and retired in 1992. But those were the best of years of DISD. Parents, the mothers didn't work then particularly. We had a big PTA program. They helped in any way that they could. They were up there. When we had visitations, they were always there, really interested in their kids. And the parents then in that Cal Yeh area were all professional people, basically. They were doctors and lawyers and pilots and people that were very, very concerned about their kids and their education. But as that area grew in housing and everything, it began to go down. It really did. The mothers began to start working with the economy like it was and everything. But still, Cal Yeh was the show school of Dallas. And I was a supervising teacher through North Texas. And when I was in 6th grade, I always had a student teacher in the fall and in the spring. And I worked with Dr. Tanner and Dr. Earp through University of North Texas as a supervising teacher. And then I really enjoyed that, working with the student teachers. And like I told them, and which will help you, I hope, along the way. And as I said, I wouldn't take for all the years that I were teaching, because as Carolyn and I have talked so many times, we felt like those were the best of years for DISD.
Busing, you said 1963, 1964. What is that? How did that work exactly?
Well, the children were bused. That's when busing started. And the children were bussed in. But our
Segregation.
school... Huh?
Segregation.
Segregation. That's when segregation started.
Started or ended?
Huh?
That's where it started.
Oh.
That's when the busing started. The children were bussed in from West Dallas.
We live right here at Thomas Jefferson and Cary, but when busing started, I would have had to go. First, they were going to make me go all the way to J.J. Pierce, and then I was going to have to go to Rusk, and they were just trying to mix all the ethnicity together, because they thought it was kind of, because there was like the area of town that more of the black people lived in. There was an area of town that more of the white people lived in. And so they bused a lot of the kids from South Dallas to North Dallas, and they were going to bus the North Dallas kids to South Dallas.
It seems all over the place.
Ask Google, actually, when did busing start in Dallas?
Started when I was in elementary school.
I know my parents. They lived in Louisiana, so things might have been a little different. And plus, their town was astronomically smaller than Dallas.
Well, as I said, our school was actually one of the big show schools in Dallas, and teachers from all over Austin and everywhere would come. We were writing our own behavioral objectives and posting the objective that we were teaching to. It had to be posted in our room long before you could pick up a teacher manual and it would spell it out. Mm-hmm. But we, as I said, we were the show school of Dallas and showing other teachers how you write your objectives and everything. Now everything is in the manual. You say this, you say that, and you teach the objective is there and everything. But it wasn't that way then.
Could you imagine being a teacher today? How different that would be?
I would not. No, I can't. I don't know. I still probably could go in and teach. I just don't know. But I understand it's changed so drastically, and the quality of teachers, I'm afraid, are not the quality of teachers that we had when I was teaching.
There's a lot more. I think there might be more restrictions to some of their abilities to.
But our principals were very strong that I had. I started out with Dr. Cummings, and then I had, oh gosh, I can't even think of the other one, but then Dr. Ploger was our last principal. All of them are deceased now. But I felt like I really taught in the best of times for Dallas. And I did see Dallas grow and change so much. Used to, we didn't have malls. There were no picture shows or anything like you can go to in the neighborhoods now. All the theaters were downtown. And when your doctors were downtown, when you went downtown, you wore a hat and gloves and your purse to match your outfit. Things are so different now. And then the malls began to build. I think, what was the first mall that was built?
Park?
Huh?
North Park?
Well, no, before North Park was the one out here at Valley View, I think. Valley View Mall was built first, and then North Park. And then the theaters began, but...
Did you ever go to Texas Theater?
What?
Did you ever go to Texas Theater?
Oh, yeah, over there, and that was in Oak Cliff, though, that on Jefferson. That's...
Where Oswald was, where he was caught, right?
Yeah, where he was caught there in the theater. No, we never did go over there to the theater. It was too far away from where we were living.
You'd mentioned the Lakewood. Did you go there?
Oh, yeah, I've been to the Lakewood Theater many times in years past. But we, as I said, when we first married, we rented a little duplex apartment. And then we bought a little home on Village Way. And then we had been in New York, and my dad, as I said, had built this big addition. There was 42 houses in this Randall's Plainview addition, and then the house that's there on Midway now was cut in the middle and moved there on Midway Road. It still stands there. He had this one house left at 3951 Adrian Drive. It still stands there. It's a beautiful little brick house. And he said, I know you want to get out of Oak Cliff. He said, that was in Oak Cliff is when they were building that Cedar Crest, and they had the Cedar Crest Theater and Country Club that they built there. That was all raw land, too, all around.
Kessler Park?
Huh?
Was that Kessler Park area?
Kessler Park area. But anyhow, Dad had this one house left, 3951 Adrian Drive, and he said, I know you'd like to, especially Mom his wife, Bessie, would like to get you close back over on this area of town. And he said, you can have this house at cost if you want to move, if you'd like it. And of course it was the fact that he had built it, and he built very sound houses. Prior to that, he had built houses all over on the M streets, Monticello and over there. And he designed, and whenever you drive down and see any of those houses that have the arch, like the old Roman arch, he designed that in brick. And you'll drive down Monticello. What are the M streets? I can't remember.
Where's Morningside?
Yeah, Morningside, and you can see the houses that Dad built before he opened his addition over on Roscoe area, and the big freeway went through that area. That area is no longer there either.
What was that?
Roscoe,
Roscoe.
Roscoe, Roscoe.
And what, Freeway 75?
That's yes, that goes in right. And that cut through all of that area. He built, I think it was 25 houses in that area, and
what was his name?
W.A. Randall, Randall.
Okay.
It was desegregation. I said that wrong, in 1967.
67. But busing started a little earlier than that, didn't it?
DISD officially making it unnecessarily difficult for black children to enter the white schools. Nevertheless, in September of 67, DISD declared Dallas schools desegregated.
57?
67.
67, okay, I said 64. Well, okay. But it gradually was going down, you might say. It wasn't the same as when, the parents were, when the mothers were home and very active in the PTA and everything. I was voted Teacher of the Year one year, and that was a very exciting time for me. But anyhow, that's about it.
Were there any obstacles during desegregation for you as a teacher?
Not really, no.
Did all the kids seem to get along pretty well?
Yeah, I did. They, I was pretty strict. I had already taught long enough. I could handle the sixth graders, I might say. As I got older, I really liked the older kids but I loved the third grade. That was always my favorite grade because I still have a good penmanship, and I used to love to. That's when they introduced cursive writing. Now they started in second grade, I think, or they don't even teach writing anymore per se. But I grew up. I went to Bickery School. It's then became James B. Bonham School, and that's a landmark school over there on North Henderson. Remember, there was a big talk several years ago. They wanted to tear James B. Bonham tear it down, and I think they finally ended up making it a landmark school. Then I went to Alex W. Spence. It had just opened. It was brand new. As seventh grade, we went into Alex W. Spence, and then I graduated from North Dallas High School in 1945. And as I said, there wasn't anything. I mean, North Dallas was way out in the country almost even then. It was amazing how it has built. And when we used to think of Beltline Road, well, that was way out. Now you go way on out before that. Beltline is even close. But it's amazing the growth that Dallas has had. It really is.
Yeah, when you look at pictures of it from around the 50s, it's so rural by comparison.
Well, my mother had pictures of downtown Dallas when it was all the mud and dirt roads before Dallas was even paved.
Mm-hmm.
And do you have any of those pictures, Lisa?
Mm-hmm.
She might be interested in those. And
so that would have been probably before 21.
yeah.
Y'all ever go to the Majestic Theater? That's where I'm going tomorrow night.
Yeah, the Majestic Theater. That was the big thing then, and I know I was going with a little boy at junior high, Of course, he didn't drive, and I didn't either then. And Mother on Saturday would let me go down on the bus, and I would meet Billy Marshall at the Majestic Theater, and they always had a show on the stage. And we'd go to the show, and then we'd go to lunch afterwards, and then he'd go and ride his bus home, and I'd go catch my bus home. And what do you have there, honey?
Oh, these are.
Show her that picture there of Bob Jeffries at the Century Room.
I don't know if I have that one.
Huh?
I don't know if I have that one.
Yeah, it's that one, big one here.
That's Dad.
Oh, is it? Oh, okay. They didn't used to have a lot of restaurants and things to go to. And most of the time, if you went out to dinner, you had to go downtown to dinner even. But it's amazing, all of these restaurants and everything. Oh, show her that picture of my long curls. She might want to show that.
You can look through that if you want. There's some loose pictures in there.
Oh crap! Sorry. So
Doesn't matter.
how old were you in this picture?
That was grade school.
Oh.
Yeah, I had long curly hair. Let's see that picture that fell out. Okay, that was in junior high.
Did you make all your clothes?
Yeah, I sewed a lot.
That's what this little dress is. She made that when she was, what, 7? 6 or 7?
I think I was 10 then. This was a Sears Roebuck contest in sewing. And I entered that and got a $50 gift certificate and a blue ribbon, I think it was.
Do you know if there's any of those Sears Roebuck houses you could order around here? You remember when you could order the houses in the catalogs?
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
I always thought that was kind of weird. Okay.
Do I have those marked? What the hell? That picture there was 19. No. Where did it slide from? There?
They're not marked.
Might have been.
That was my long curls.
Oh, I
The
love
longest
it.
curls. Mother took me, I never will forget that. I was down to Sanger Harris, where El Centro is now. That is the old Sanger Harris. And you had to go to the beauty shop there. And it was 19, this curl here was 27 inches long. I still had it in there in a bag. Let's see what it was this. This was 1944.
Wow.
This was,
What a looker.
well, I never went to I had natural curly hair. I never went to the beauty shop or anything.
Do you mind if I take a
Oh
photograph?
no, take pictures of those. I don't look like that now.
Where did you get your makeup?
That was tinted, I don't know. They didn't have colored pictures then. If you wanted a picture in color, then you had to pay extra to have it tinted. And see, this was the picture that was tinted. What is
Oh,
there?
cool. It's
Is
got
there-
an address on it, too.
Huh?
It's got an address on it on the back.
Yeah. This was 1944, summer 1944. Main Street, that was the old Sanger Harris. And when I was a teenager, I worked at Sanger Harris in what they called the authorizing department. That was when they had the cylinder. They would put your charge
Talk
in.
about tinted.
Wow.
I was in college, this was my senior year, and Bouchard photographers were right across the street. And I had this made, and he had it in the window in a huge picture. I don't know whatever happened to it, but he made this one and gave it to me. And then I used it as my engagement picture when we married.
Did you have any style icons at the time?
Any what?
Any like people that you liked in Hollywood? Any style icons?
Oh, well, Shirley Temple, of course. My aunt copied all of this. Is Bob Jeffries right here. This is Dr. Jeffries' son. And that's at the Century Room.
At the Hotel Adolphus.
Adolphus, the Century Room is still there in the Adolphus.
I actually, I got to stay there before they renovated
What
it.
is this? I don't remember that certificate. What is that?
Sigma Alpha Iota.
Oh, yeah.
A member of the chapter.
Music sorority.
Yeah, and then I also belong to Sigma Alpha Iota. It's a national fraternity.
I haven't been to the Century Room. Or is it pretty fancy?
Oh, it was then, and they used to have a big arena that they'd pull up, and they'd ice skate on it. It wasn't real large. It was about a circle of this large of the dining room area.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Do you think it's still there, the ice skating?
I don't know. I haven't been to the Century Room, I guess, since. But he took me to dinner there many times because, as I said, there wasn't a lot of restaurants then. Now, you know, we're just inundated with restaurants and fast food places and everything. And then I have a picture here of a soldier that I went with, and he took me even to the Century Room. Oh, that's graduation at TSCW. Ooh!
Must be the mailman.
Oh, my icon, you might say, was Shirley Temple. My aunt was a seamstress, and she copied all of the Shirley Temple shows, clothes, and I have an original little Shirley Temple purse in there even. I guess we don't want to see it, but yeah, it's, they ran across it, and I said, well, could sell that online, I don't know. That was my wedding picture there, 1948.
I love the style back in the 40s.
Yeah. Oh, I also took, my senior year I also took organ, pipe organ. Here they had the big pipe organ. That's a Hammond organ there I was playing at a wedding.
So when did you start, did you like singing as much as playing?
Oh, I wasn't a singer. I couldn't, I mean, I never had a voice to sing particularly.
This is your class?
Yeah. I didn't know Lisa even had that out. That's after we married.
Did you have to do a lot of drills with your class about, nuclear invasion or anything?
Oh yeah, duck and cover. Yeah, and then of course the fire drills, but duck and cover was once a month. You'd go out in the hall, and the kids had to duck and put their arms behind their head like this at the lockers.
Did you feel that it was just a safety precaution, or were you ever
Well,
concerned?
it was to keep, especially from out of the room where all the glass on the windows, because the windows are what would shatter, of course. And it was just the safest way against the lockers there in the hall. Yeah, you had your...
See, I was in school when all that was going on. We would have the fire drill was the bells, and the raid drill where it was the whistle.
Yeah.
Air
Lisa,
raid.
that little purse,
I saw that it was.
It's original, and it's a limited edition that's numbered. And I bet you could sell it for a good price. I never thought about that. That was in 1948. And as I said, he had this real enlarged and a great big picture in his window, and it won a first prize. Oh, that's just at another wedding I played at.
Did you get money for playing?
No, they were friends. I didn't charge them. This was my wedding party here.
Here's the wedding album.
They're all gone. They're all deceased.
Oh. It must be tough.
I don't know. I have one friend. Yeah, I do. I have one, Betty Jo, a college friend, and that's all I have left out of the group. These were my wedding pictures, if you want to see those.
For sure.
Oh, I like to look at them again myself.
So what's the story with your parents? Tell me about them.
Well, what is all of this?
Your dad was,
My dad was a builder, my mother was a homemaker, and she helped him with selecting the painting and the hardware and the light fixtures and things like that.
so like she helped with the aesthetic touch of the house.
Yeah,
So they were kind of a
this was,
team effort.
here's a picture of, this was Mother and Daddy. Well, here, I can put it, I take it out.
Oh, here's see a picture of your dad.
Here was their wedding picture. Wedding picture. W.A. Randall and Bessie Lee Moffett. Is there any writing on the back?
Wedding picture.
Uh-huh.
W.A. and Bessie Randall.
Mm-hmm.
Any idea what year that was?
It's not marked, is it? I don't know. What is it? Or, I mean, when?
You were married in
48.
I could have married like a
1948.
turn of the century.
Oh, these were good.
Well, when was Truett born? Who was the oldest? George or Truett? Truett was the oldest.
Truett
right?
was the oldest. I don't remember, honey. I don't.
Actually, you know what? I think it may be in this.
I don't remember. Truett, George, and Sonny. And Sonny was 5 years older than me. I never did. I mean, when I came along, they were never at home. Oh, here is. This was an anniversary picture of us. Oh, here, this was a better picture of my curls. I don't know if you saw this one. Let me pull this out so you can not have it. Look at that.
Wow. They just did that on their own?
Huh?
Did you have to do anything to it, or that's just how your hair fell?
No, mother would wrap them around her finger. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I remember that. Every morning, she'd comb my hair and wrap those around her finger. I love this picture, anniversary picture. I don't know what year that was, but it must have been. That was at the Century Room too. Yeah, you had to, all pictures were in black and white then, and you had to tint them. This was Sigma Alpha Iota. This the National Music Fraternity I belonged to. I pledged it in college. It was a fraternity, not a sorority. These were pictures 1953, 54 of my kids out at Bushman. And that was the faculty. How about that?
It's a big wedding cake.
Huh?
It's a big wedding cake.
Yeah. That was down at First Baptist Church. I was married there. I haven't looked at these in so long. Oh, the first Thanksgiving. Yeah, with my little third graders. We did a play that they came out and televised. Here it is, Lisa, here are the dates, I've got them. Truett was born in 1913. George was born in 1916. Sonny was born in 1922, and I was born in 27. George, my brother Truett, had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy. My brother George didn't have any children, and my brother Sonny had 3 children, 2 girls and a boy.
Did you guys ever go to any music events?
Oh yeah, we always, as I said, we loved the theater. We had season tickets to the summer musicals when they were in the band shell.
Wow.
And then when they built the theater there now where they have the musicals, we got real good seats because we had been members so long. And this was the story of Mother. But anyhow, we had musical seats right up until he got sick, and we also had season tickets out at the Irving Theater, and we had tickets when Garland came along at the Garland Theater. And then we were very active in
These
the
were the
kids.
albums I had gotten out that I thought you might.
Huh? Here's those dates. Did you hear me say I found them?
Mm-hmm.
They were right. Where were they? Anyhow, every year right after Christmas, then we would go to New York to the theater because.
These were some of the
Huh? Because that was always, we felt like the
older around Dallas. I'll get it. I'll get it. this is the lady that was part of the committee on doing the Bronco Bowl,
Oh,
on
wow.
building the Bronco Bowl. This is her mom. I mean, her sister, Marie. And her brother was the fire chief over on at the fire department that's right there at the entrance to Love Field. That fire department. He was the fire chief there. There's some other-
Have you any idea where this house is?
That was the,
It says
Yeah.
first house built by W.A. Randall in 1909.
this was where I was born. This was on Park Avenue. It's over there, you know where the old city park is?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, it was I think the house is not there, obviously. But anyhow, it was the next, right behind, well, the park is here, and Park Avenue runs like this, or did then. And that's where I was born. This was 1909, he built that.
I have a couple
Ni-
friends that live in that neighborhood.
1909.
When that it says W.A. and mother, I.M. and Marie, W.A.'s new horse and buggy.
Yeah, that was Marie, W.A., and mother.
Is that your writing or Grandma's writing?
That's Grandma's writing.
Here's their wedding picture. Was that what was in that other one?
Excuse
Was that what was in that other album?
me. Yeah.
And that was her brother, Harry.
Harry. Harry, mother graduated from Ursuline Academy, and Harry, her brother, yeah, it's marked, Harry marked.
Yeah.
He was a cabinet maker back then, and he designed the staircases and the cabinets and everything of Ursuline Academy when it used to be downtown. Then when Ursuline Academy was built out here on Walnut Hill Lane, but of course he was dead by then, but anyhow, mother got to go to Ursuline Academy because he worked there. And when they would have their catechism, mother would sit in the back of the room. It was a study hall for her. Here, let me put that. And so she knew as much about Catholicism as you put those. But this was the first house. Did you get a picture of that?
I did. That's awesome.
Wasn't anything even around it. It was amazing, even as I said over here.
Do you know where this house? This is Jenny, Aunt Jenny.
That's
and
Aunt
husband.
Jenny.
Where's that house?
She lived on Rieger, on, it was over there in East Dallas, Aunt Jenny and husband. I never knew her husband, but I knew Aunt Jenny. I don't remember the name of the street. Are those pictures that Betty sent?
Yeah, this is mostly Sunny and. Was that Pal?
Yeah, that's my brother Sonny with my dog Pal. When he was a puppy. That's so cute.
Did you see this house?
Yeah,
Isn't that cool?
that's the first house he built in 1909.
Is that him standing in front of it?
Let's see. Let me see that one. No, that's not him.
Oh, Aunt
that's
Jenny
Aunt,
and
Aunt Jenny.
husband.
Yeah, that was one of my mother's sisters.
So this bay window is on the other side. It was on the other side of this house.
No, that was a different street, but I don't remember what street it was on.
Now the house that she's talking about that she grew up in is still there. It's a white
52.
house on Midway Road.
Well, but no, 5206 Richard Avenue. That's where I grew up until Dad opened this addition, and then, as I said, he built that house. That's now there on Midway Road, and it was kind of interesting. We had left Pal. We had taken Pal with us over to the new house, and we were in the process of moving and everything, and and Pal got away, and in 3 days later, Pal showed back up on Richard Street, and we didn't know how. That was a long way for that dog to go. We didn't know how in the world he went without, found his way back home without getting killed.
You ever seen a real mink stole?
Wow. Nice.
4 skins. I have a 3-skin gray one in there. Remember the boys used to play with?
Mm-hmm.
Whose was that? Huh?
If it wasn't yours, this was Aunt Lucille's.
Well, she might have given it to me. I don't remember. The one Dad gave me was a cerulean blue mink.
The silver cape?
Yeah, that was the silver cape. I guess Dad did give me those. They're still in good condition, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
You're just overwhelmed with pictures.
I miss having real pictures.
Huh?
I miss having real pictures. When digital cameras came out, I was not a fan.
Oh, I know. In fact, that's what I've been working on. All of our old pictures, scanning them and digitalizing them. But that was, in fact, I was just thinking about that yesterday because I love actually having the picture itself.
Right. I went to overseas when it was right about the time digital cameras were becoming very popular, and I went overseas and I just refused to buy a digital camera, and all I had was a 35 millimeter. And I don't know, all the pictures that I got were just, I don't know, a little bit more experimental because you don't know what they're going to look like until you get them developed.
Exactly. That's why I think I have, let's see, what's my count on my Google Plus? I have 76,000 pictures on my Google Plus from scanning, old pictures onto that.
It's a lot of work.
To preserve them.
It's definitely a good thing to go ahead and do, though. And back it up on maybe another,
Oh yeah, I've saved all of them to flash drives, and then also on the Google Plus, I bought extra storage on, so that way I actually can, pull it up anywhere I am. But
What is that one? What does it say on the back?
Jack Stewart.
Let's see. I would recognize that.
That's my dad.
This was Jack when he was in the. No,
Now he served under.
yeah,
He was a
Mac.
journalist and a medic, and he served under General Patton.
Wow.
He was in the room when Patton slapped the soldier. He was standing at the foot of his bed. We have all of his letters home.
I love all the way everybody dresses back then.
Yeah.
Makes me want to go shopping. Did everybody make their own clothes back then, or was there a store everyone went to?
Oh, most people made their clothes then, you might say. That's why I even learned to sew as a young person. And
Gracie, stop it.
as I said, they didn't have these mall areas and everything where you can go and shop. You had to go downtown. Gosh, I didn't remember my cake being so big here. It's a beautiful wedding cake. Mother had it catered with some company. It was over on Greenville Avenue, I remember them.
How did you feel when they put Highway 30 through the old neighborhood over there in the Cedars?
Well, I mean, you know, it's just progress. You've got to have more travel space and everything. And, oh, this was graduation year. 50th wedding anniversary, Park City Baptist Church.
Do you ever go to that side of town anymore to visit Old City Park?
No, oh yeah, I used to take my kids out there because, you know, it's historical. And on a field trip, we'd take the kids out there, and it would show how they would shoe a horse, you know, putting the horseshoe on the horse, and how they churned with the old-fashioned churn, and they had an old-fashioned school set up out there. Have you ever been out there?
Mhm.
It's very interesting. Yeah, I took the kids out there many a time on field trips. Because it was hard for them to even imagine the way it was, you know.
I wish we still churned our own butter.
Mother churned the butter, and that was one of my jobs sometime, was to churn. Hers was one you turn the handle on. And, because as I said, we always had fresh milk. My dad always had a garden. Even when we were over on Midway Road, it was actually, that lot was 3/4 of an acre, and it was kind of like a pie shape, the front, and then the big part was in the back. And he had a garden, and he'd go down to the sawmill. There used to be a sawmill over on North Henderson, and he'd get the shavings from the sawmill and bring them home and put them on the yard on his vegetables, because that was a natural fertilizer, you know, because those shavings from the trees were very rich. And he was a man ahead of his time, you might say, in figuring out how to do things. I know he used to tell me during the war, you know, I don't remember the Depression per se. I remember hearing him talk about it, but there was no building or anything going on. Everything was virtually at a standstill. but he drove a jitney, and that was a taxi over the viaduct, the original viaduct there in downtown, and it was called a jitney, which was a taxi, and that's how he earned money during the Depression. I said war. It's during the Depression. I don't know how many years he drove that, but then as soon as the Depression started declining and everything started picking up, then that's when he went into the building big time, and mainly the Monticello and those streets over there. He would work all day as a more or less overseeing. He had a group of men that he used all the time. And then he'd come home at night, and we had a room set up for his big drawing board. He was an architect. And he'd sit and draw plans on the next houses that he wanted to build, and then have them printed into the blueprints. I don't know if they even still do that now, I don't know. But he was a real hard worker, loved to work, and I guess I inherited it too. I used to love to work. As I said, I got my first job when I was from Mr. Babin down at Sanger Harris, where El Centro is now. And that's when you had, I was in the authorizing department. You got your charge ticket, and then you put it in that little vacuum thing and send it up, and it would come up to our area, and they had the little cross with the alphabet on them, and you'd have to, I worked like whatever section you worked, say A through C, then you'd have to open that cylinder, go and look up, and they had these huge ledgers with all the charge accounts, and then you'd have to put your initial in the little box that they weren't overpaid, or that they still owed or something. And that was my first job. And then all through college, even when on holiday time I went back and worked. And I saved my money, and when I was a senior, I thought I was really hot stuff. I bought my first fur coat, and it was a Russian pony skin coat. Very thick, very heavy. It's a smooth fur, but it was very heavy. But Ruth had a fur coat for graduation. Never will forget, from high school. But I had bought it with my own money. And then, later years, Francine of Dallas was a bridal consultant. That was before they had all the bridal companies they have now. But she had a studio over on Northwest Highway right by Park Cities Baptist Church. And Lisa at that time was living in Germany. And I said, well, I guess we're going to have to get an extra job if we get enough money ahead to go see her in Bad Kissingen, Germany. And so Francine said, well, I need somebody to work in the bridal. And she said, why don't you come on after school and work for me? So I worked Monday nights, Thursday nights, all day Saturday. And her supervisor at that time taught me all the laces and everything. And I worked in the bridal department. And I loved working with the brides. And then in the summertime, I was manager for her. And then she opened another one in Sackowitz Village when they built that village out there. And I worked out there. I first started in Holland, Lake Hollins. It was she had built an office there. A studio there. And then later, I was working on Saturdays. Well, Jack wasn't working, and I said, look, if I'm going to work on Saturday, you need to work too. And so Tom, her husband, they had the tuxedos in the front of and so Jack ended up working in the tuxedo department on Saturdays. And as it turned out, though, they came home before we got to Germany. We didn't get to Germany. But after Jack retired 5 years before I did. He was in the Texas Power and Light Company, had a real good job, grew up with the computers from the time of the when they had the key punch operators, you know, all of that. And then when Remington and Rand came out with their big machine, they sent him to Endicott, New York, and he learned about that new machine. It was gonna computer, and then when IBM came out, they sent him back, and he came back and trained the people in the computer room. But he grew up from wiring the boards for a computer to when he retired. He was with Texas Power and Light Company 42 years. He was supervisor of all the accounts that they had running, all the computers running, and they would bring the materials to him that they wanted programmed and run. He said, well, one thing, when I retire, I don't want to ever look at a television again, because he had to watch all of these computer screens. And I said, well, that's okay with me. And then 5 years later, I went on and retired, and then that's when we started traveling. And we did, I think, eight places abroad. And prior to that, we had always traveled in the United States and took the kids everywhere in the United States. Gracie, what do you need? Gracie. Oh, she just hears something. That's really about, I've been very blessed. And nobody believes my age. In fact, I've had several people ask if I'd had work done, and I said, no, I haven't had any facial work done. They said, but your mind is still so sharp and everything. And I said, well, isn't it supposed to be? And it's kind of interesting, I went to a new allergist because I do have severe allergy problems. And
Who doesn't?
I know,
really.
living in Texas, and I had all the pricks on my back and everything, and I'm allergic to grass and mold and dust and weeds and leaves. Everything you're breathing, I'm allergic to. And I do take heavily Zyrtex, Allegro, and a prescription for allergy throughout the day. But this new doctor, Dr. Lee, Oriental woman, when I was there the first time, she said, do you mind if I ask you a personal question? I said, no. And I thought, what in the world is she going to ask? She said, you look like you're in your 70s, late, maybe 70s. She said, how could you be the age that you are? And I said, well, I'm just blessed is all I know. I'm just blessed. I've got good genes and I'm blessed. And I said, I've always been a hard worker. I've always tried to be health conscious. I've always never been a sun worshiper. Sun is the worst thing for your skin. And I said we had 2 wonderful kids that never did cause us that much trouble or anything. And I just really blessed. I've had some serious health problems. Actually, when I was 9 years old, I had diphtheria. And we never have found the quarantine sign?
No, I know it was here. I don't know where it is yet.
And I had the diphtheria shot. But they said it's like one, and the booster. But mother was very strong on all of that. And I developed diphtheria. I was in 4th grade at Vickery School, and which was Bonham later. And they said, well, Ruth will never see Christmas. Said, if you want her to have Christmas, you need to go on and have it now. This was early October. So I had my Christmas in October, not knowing I was probably going to die.
What is diphtheria?
What is diphtheria, Lisa? It was, I'm not really sure. I don't remember.
Well, it's non-existent now, but we used to do, it was part of the polio and diphtheria. It was part of the booster shots that kids all had to get. When you got smallpox was the one that everybody, that left the scar on your arm. And
So it was in the polio area?
But anyhow, I never had been to the hospital until 5 years ago. I had to have double knee surgery. I was grinding bone on bone. I'd taken care of Jack here for about 4.5 years, and I couldn't. I got where I could hardly walk. I was going to be in a wheelchair, and so I put Jack in a group home. I didn't want him in a big facility out off of Harvest Hill. He had his own room there, and he had wonderful care. And actually, he was in therapy down on Live Oak, the therapist where they sent me after my double knee surgery. And we were in the same room for 5 weeks. And when he was already there for therapy, and then when we got ready for me to leave, I knew I had to put him somewhere too, because I still couldn't take care of him, because I did outpatient therapy then for a month. That's when I put him in a group home. And he was there from January and passed away in November the 7th. And he was with hospice then, about the last 6 weeks before he passed away. And hospice was wonderful. I couldn't say enough. They furnished a bed that moved to keep him from getting bed sores, and had the eggshell things on the bed, and they furnished his oxygen and everything. And after I got well enough, and I'd go out there and stay with him during the day, and he got where I had to feed him. His brain couldn't tell him to swallow, and I would try to feed him. And
Diphtheria is an upper respiratory. Throat fever, swollen glands in the neck.
Yeah, in the neck, and
can cover tissue, the nose, tonsils, voice box, and throat, making it hard to breathe and to swallow. The poison may also get into the bloodstream and cause damage to the heart, kidneys, and nerves.